Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Secrets to Real Estate Investing. I have for you a lady who is so fun. I think of her as a rock star because she has pink hair. I'm sure you'll see it in the photos and in our video on YouTube if you want to see it. She is amazing. She has such a great success story of true rags to riches, much more rags than I've heard in the past. I can't wait to introduce you to Edna Keep. So thank you for being on the show, Edna, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Holly. I think this will be fun.
Well, to enlighten our listeners to your beginning and tell us about some of your path and past, give us your backstory, Edna. Where did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure, I'd love to share that, Holly. So I kind of always start my story as I was a single mom at age 16. And so I couldn't go to university or anything like that. Not that I had a lot of interest in university anyway, but I lived in low-income housing, subsidized housing, and my daughter went to subsidized daycare. So I paid all of $30 a month for her to go to daycare. Always worked. But I didn't know much about making money or anything like that. And so fast forward quite a few years, I tried different jobs, receptionist, bookkeeper, accounting clerk, and different stuff, and kind of office administrator, worked my way up. And I eventually became a financial advisor. And I worked as a financial advisor for about 15 years. I built up a pretty nice book of business. At one time, I had over 600 clients. I enjoyed it when I was working at it. I had some really great clients. I eventually sold off a bunch and ended up with just my top 300. And when I was 40, I met my husband when I was 36. I got married when I was 40. And always busy with work. I traveled around a lot with work and made good money. I had you have assets under management when you're selling mutual funds, and I had I can't remember how many million, about 25 million, I think. So I had a recurring income, which is where I got a real taste of passive income coming in all the time, which was so nice. But I always worked and made more. And so when my husband and I decided to have children, both of us didn't want to be gone as much. So we tried to figure out some other stuff that we would do. And I thought I'd be one of those moms who would go right back to work, but didn't want to. When the girls came along, I really never went back to work more than 3 days a week. And then I moved over into the real estate world because we just got tired of all the ups and downs of the stock market. And so in 2007, we were introduced to the real estate. And before that, we owned our own home, but we really didn't understand how real estate investments worked. As a matter of fact, I remember telling my mutual fund clients, well, why would you invest in real estate? Like it grows by 3% a year. Like that doesn't even sound good. That was what I thought. But we decided we needed a second income stream because my income was always tied to mutual funds, and everything was up and down. And of course, if it was up, I made more money. If it was down, I made less. And we didn't like to have our lifestyle compromised, so we thought, well, you know what? We'll pick up 1 or 2 rental properties and see how it goes. So we went to a weekend class with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I'm sure most people know, and we just learned so much in that weekend that we kind of sat back, and at the end they offer you a chance to take some further education. And we kind of worried about it because it was quite a lot of money. I think it was $27,000 US at the time. And we had equity in our home. That's what we were going to use. But it was still a big decision to spend that kind of money on ourselves because we didn't know how far we'd want to take it. But that was the turning point. That year we spent a lot of time educating ourselves. We bought our first 2 properties. And you know what, Holly, you jump in anytime you want to stop me. I can ramble on sometimes forever and ever.
Well, I do want to jump in because I'm based out of the Los Angeles area. And
Okay.
Your adorable accent is clearly not from Los Angeles. So start out by telling, too, our listeners where you're from and where you are.
Well, we currently live in White City, Saskatchewan, which is just outside the capital city of Regina. We're on an acreage, and I work from home. So this is my home office, the nice green background. See that?
Yes.
And I've always been from Saskatchewan. And you know what? Primarily our real estate portfolio is in Saskatchewan too. So we've had some really good numbers, some really good growth lately. So Saskatchewan, Canada, which is kind of straight up from Montana, North Dakota, that area.
Okay. Yeah, and your accent reminds me a little bit of how Minnesota ends, if that's a word to talk.
Oh,
Minnesota.
yeah.
So probably
Yeah.
because they're not too far from you. Huh?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I love it. Okay, well, why don't you tell us about your first deal? I love to hear about people's first deal in real estate.
Well, we were really nervous, and we looked at a few different properties, and everything scared us. You know what? Tenants scared us, roofs scared us, furnaces scared us, all that kind of big stuff. So our very first purchase ended up being a condo, and our realtor had taken us around and looked at a few houses, and they all just seemed like a lot of work. But these condos were done up pretty nicely. There was no work involved, which was important to us. We paid a little bit more for it, but I still remember the day he took us into the yard to look at these condos, and we drove up, and I said, well, how many of these are for sale? Because they weren't all for sale. And he said, well, he gave me a number, and I said, is that one there for sale right in front of me? And the reason I asked him that is my daughter had just moved in to rent that place like the month prior. And he said, looked at his list, and he goes, as a matter of fact, it is for sale. And I said, well, then you know what? I want to take that one because, and I hadn't even been inside yet, because my daughter lives there. I said, I already know I got a good renter, because again, we were scared of tenants, right? And then within the next couple of days, he also said that the one beside it was for sale. So my daughter was telling me that the tenant beside her had lived there for 17 years.
Oh, wow. They weren't moving, were they?
They were not moving. So I said, you know what, let's buy two. Let's buy two right there. Side by side, they were both nice units, 2-bedroom, garden style. And so we did. And so those were our first two purchases. And you know what? We still own them to this day. My daughter lived there for quite a while. But the kind of the funny part of this story is we met with the tenant, and we told them our story, and that we were looking at investing in real estate, and they ended up buying their own place in the same unit, like within a couple months. And we thought, oh my gosh, I think we talked too much,
Yeah. You told them how great it was. They're like, okay, we want to do that too. So you had to get a new tenant, huh?
But you know what? We put an ad up, and we got a really nice tenant. It was a older fellow with a handicapped daughter, and that he was looking after, and they stayed with us for a couple of years. So those were our first two. So they're, like I said, we still own them to this day. We lived about 8 blocks away from those two purchases. We don't now, because now we're out on an acreage, but we still own them to this day. And we were able to refinance those properties within a year, because we bought in a rising market, pull all our money out of them.
Nice. So what's the general numbers of it? Were you making positive cash flow, like right up front, or was it a struggle, or what was that all
No,
about?
you know what? We had positive cash flow right from the beginning. But one of the reasons we bought those condos is it had a rental pool where you could buy into the rental pool, and then it was just based on the number of vacancies, or we could take the risk on ourselves. So what I found out very quickly, my daughter was paying $740 a month for rent, and we just knew we could get more rent than the $700 that they were requesting, or maybe it was $740 to stay in the rental pool. So we never did sign up for the rental pool. And within a very short period of time, we were making $1,200 a month on those condos. And at one time, we had them up as high as $1,400 a month. With our market the way it is, it's actually dropped back down to about $1,200 again. But still, we cash flow those properties about $300 a month, even after all the, you guys in the US would call them HOA fees. Here we call them condo fees.
Okay.
So it's still about $300 a month.
Fantastic. So you had a positive experience right out of the gate. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So I know that you are great about using other people's money for investing too. So maybe you can tell us about your first no money down deal that you did.
Sure. When we took our Rich Dad classes, that was actually my favorite class. They called it creative financing. And
Mm-hmm.
to this day, it's one of the things I love most about real estate is all the creative financing options you can do. And so our first no money down deal, by this time, we'd used up most of the equity in our home, and we knew if we were going to build, because our goal was to have 50 doors in 5 years. We wanted to have 5,000 a month minimum cash flow, and we had been taught that if your property cash flowed $50 a month, buy it. So we thought, okay, 50 doors, 5 years, 5,000 a month passive income. That's a really nice side income. So we knew we needed to use other people's money if we were going to get there. So our first no money down deal, my daughter at the time had lived just a block away, and her and her boyfriend had broke up, and so she had he was driving around there one day and he said, Edna, he says, there's a brand new house in that area that's up for sale. He says, I thought you might be interested in it. So we went by and had a look, and it wasn't a brand new house. It was an old house. It was built in the 50s, but she'd put brand new siding and brand new windows in it, so it looked new from the outside. And it was an up-down duplex, so it had 2 bedrooms upstairs and 1 bedroom down. And so we talked to her, and she was asking $160,000, and the work wasn't done. So we started out offering her, I think, 140,000. She wouldn't take it. She said, the work's not done. I really think I can get 160. But if I don't, I'll entertain your offer. So we went back home and thought about it, went back and we offered 150. And she said, well, you know what, again, I probably would take 150, but I just want to finish it, because it's going to look really nice when it's finished. And so we thought, you know what, she's kind of playing hardball with us. What if we offer her asking price, but ask her for a vendor take back? And of course, she didn't know what a vendor take back was. So we had to explain to her about her putting her own money back into her own property. So we explained it saying, we asked her first what she was going to do with the money, and she said, I'm getting out of rental properties. It's too much work. I even have my own family living in here and they screwed me. And so she says, I just want out. And she says, I'll probably just put my money in the bank. What do you think you'd earn there? Oh, maybe 1 or 2% if I'm lucky. And we said, well, you know what, we've got a proposal. We would be interested in buying your property. We'll give you full price, $160,000 for it, if you would give us the down payment back. We have the money now to do the down payment, but at close, and we would pay you 6% interest on that. So once she got to understand, she said, wow, I'm actually going to win twice in this deal. That never happens to me. Yep, I'm in. So she did it. So at close, right at the lawyers, we were able to buy her property with her money. I think we had a $5,000 deposit, and she left her, it was 32,000 or something like that in the deal. And the original deal was that she'd leave it there for 5 years. We did end up paying her out sooner. And we've had people say to us, you probably overpaid for that property, Edna. And I said, yeah, you know what? I think we did. But we got $1,000 a month minimum cash flow out of that property for the next 5 years. So you tell me who won. We won. It was a big win.
So you put $5,000 down. That was how much you put in the deal. And you
Yeah.
made $1,000 a month after
Well,
that. I mean, oh, wow.
that original 5,000, we got all that back because she put her whole money in there. The only money we had in the deal was the legal costs, which I think was around $2,000. And yeah, and $1,000 a month. And to this day, we own that property, and we still make over $800 a month cash flow, even though rents have dropped a bit. Because sometimes we had it furnished and we made a little bit more, and a couple of times it was vacant. It is an older property. But yeah, very, very happy. And we still have that property to this day.
Nice. Well, I know you teach other people about doing these cool strategies as well. So maybe you could share with us some of the success stories of those you've taught.
You know what? I'd love to share that because, right now I have a program called 90 Days to 5K. And it's not in 90 days you're going to make $5,000. That's not what it is. The idea behind the program is in 90 days, when you're done the class, you will know exactly what it takes for you to be making $5,000 a month in passive income in 3 to 5 years. That's the time frame I use. And the reason I say 3 to 5 years is, you know what, that was originally our goal, was 5 years to making $5,000 a month. And we did it in 18 months. So I'm very realistic with my numbers. And I have students right now that are in my program that are actually working on 23 separate deals, and I get to see them all because I help them analyze them or look at their analyzing to make sure it's right, and almost 400 doors that these students are working on right now. And I've had one of my biggest success stories, or the one I like to brag about the most because it's so powerful. I have two 20-year-old guys who they didn't want to go to university. They wanted to be millionaires. That's what they want to be. And they figured out that they wanted to do it through real estate. So they originally were going to go buy a hood house. Everybody thinks they got to start by fixing and flipping a house, right? Make some money. And they wouldn't even get out of the vehicle at night in this area. That's the kind of area it was.
Okay.
And so they got back in the vehicle and they went, no, we got to do something different. We got to educate ourselves so we know what we're doing. I mean, they're talking about knocking down walls and all this stuff, and they didn't even have a clue about that stuff. One was a car salesman, and one was I think he was a manager at Best Buy. So both good little salesmen, but they didn't know anything about contracting. And so they were talking to a local mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker said, you know what, if you want to get into that business, you got to talk to Edna. She teaches people like you guys. And she said, best bang for your buck money-wise. Don't take the money you've saved and put it in a house and hope you might make some money. Go see Edna, and you'll do well. So they started with me about a year ago, and they took their time to learn. In December of last year, they bought their first building, and it was a 12-unit, almost new building that was going into foreclosure if we didn't rescue finance these guys. And that building, they were able to raise the capital to buy it. Now, the first $135,000, I think, they actually raised from one of the parents. And some people say, oh, well, yeah, I don't have any parents. But you know what? How many parents would give a 20-year-old kid $100,000 and some $1,000 if they didn't have some good faith in them, right?
Right.
So they got the first part from the parents, got the second $100,000 or two more $100,000 from some investors. But the investors were a little slow bringing their money to the table, and the parents were kind of disappointed. They said, oh, we didn't think you could raise the money. We were really hoping that we would be your full partners. And I said, well, you know what, boys, if you want to do that, why not? Like, at the meantime, they'd been out working on the property because we got under agreement for sale. They'd been painting and doing different stuff. One was doing the books. And I said, you know what, if you want your parents, we can find something for the other investors. And so they went back to the parents that night, and the one boy gave his parents 15 minutes to make the decision, and they said yes. So they actually ended up fully funding that property with their parents investing with them. So they're 50-50 partners. Their next deal, they got two 12 units, again, almost brand new, the same foreclosure deal that we're working with this supplier of ours. So we helped them raise the money. I put in a senior partner with them to help them finance it so that they would have the experience and the net worth, because they're 20 years old, right? They have no net worth.
Right.
And shortly after that, they were approached by another building owner down the street from their first building, which was, again, built by the same builder, but had been sold a couple years prior. And they said, okay, so we know you bought this other building. We are not very good at managing these buildings. at the point they approached these guys, they had 9 out of 12 vacant. 9 out of 12 units vacant. They were hurting. And guess what? Our guys had a waiting list for their building. So they said, absolutely, we'll take it over. So again, they did it under agreement for sale because the guy's mortgage is not up till November. This just happened in May. They'll work on that building, bringing it up to snuff and get it ready for financing. And, you know, they bought those buildings at about $1,550,000, and they were appraised at $1.9 million. They have 4 buildings like that now. And just the other day, it turned a year that they've been working with me.
That is so exciting. Well, I guess on their path to becoming millionaires, sounds like they did already in their net worth. That is super.
You know what? Yeah. Well, exciting. You know what? They don't get to have the net worth 100% themselves because they do have investment partners, but they own 50% of one building, 30% of another, and then 20% of the last 24. So, but even then it's up over 250,000, right? Their net worth.
Oh, yeah.
And once their investors are paid out, which the goal is 5 years, well, then all their cash flow cuts in. They're already at over 5,000 a month in 5 years.
Awesome.
They're there.
Well, and now they know the system. They know how to do it, so they can keep doing it and building and building. That's wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got 2 more buildings under contract right now. Again, same guy, same guy in trouble, but we've built a relationship with them. So now the deals come straight to us.
Yeah, because you've performed and done what you said you're going to do. So then you're the next logical buyer for it. Well, how wonderful that his that seller's problem is, you know, opportunities for your students. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
So, so what are you doing yourself? Obviously, you're coaching people, and tell us more about that.
Well, you know, I feel like everything I've done in my life has kind of brought me to this point. I get up in the morning and I'm almost giddy with what I get to do. You know, I get to, do stuff like this. I get to be on the phone at noon. I'm on the phone with another couple who have a property under contract, and we're going to discuss the best way to do it. Just before our call, I had a student of mine call me up, and they want to put an offer on a building in British Columbia. And we went through it's their first one. It's their first building. And so I told them what to say and how to sound sophisticated on the phone and stuff like that. And I should hear back within the hour if they got their offer put in. And then within 24 hours, we should know if they got it accepted. And, you know, I've already got investors that are interested in investing in that area. And this couple is actually in my mastermind. And so one of the things that I do with my mastermind students is I help them with stuff like that, you know. The 90-day to 5K program is my training program to get people up. I'm really training them to be my partners long term.
Yes.
And if they like it, they like what we do. I just think we're really able to scale our business a lot larger working with a whole group of people as it is than trying to do it, as a lone ranger.
Absolutely. You can do so much more. Instead of 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 3, 4, or 5, between leveraging everybody's skills and assets and all of that, you can build and grow so much more and everybody benefits. So I get excited when I meet people with the same philosophy as me. That's exciting.
That's great. Exciting.
So tell us a little bit about, for my listeners, we do a free download almost every show, and you're generously offering your download about JV secrets. Tell us a little bit about what is in that.
Well, one of the things that we learned very early on is about partnering with people who had more experience than us. And that was really key for us to build our portfolio quickly. We were scared. We were scared of everything. And, and we were scared of losing money. We were scared of tenants. We were scared of roofs, everything. So for us to really scale, and we met a couple who had been in the same program we'd been in, but had been in it 2 years longer. And they had something like 30 houses or something when we met them. And we went, holy cow, that's a lot of houses in 2 years. How did you do that? And they showed us. At the time, I couldn't raise money for properties because I was still a financial advisor, and you have these rules. Mm-hmm. And so they showed us about raising money, about bringing in capital, and how they'd been able to do it. And we partnered with them on quite a few deals. Even our very first apartment building, we partnered with them. And it just took so much of the fear away. We had the net worth and the incomes to qualify for the mortgages, but we didn't have the experience. So they had the experience, and they managed the properties. They were property managers. And that's one of the things when you're dealing with multifamily that's required is you have to have a net worth of at least 25% of whatever you're buying, you or your investors, and you have to have property management experience, or you have to have a good property management team on board. They don't just allow people to buy apartment buildings without those strategies all set up. And so that's what we've taken and run with is we do joint ventures, and it's the best way to really build your portfolio. I always say I'd rather own 25% of 4 buildings than 100% of one, because they're not all performing at the same time, especially if you're in different areas. So that's kind of what the joint venture secrets is about. It's how to set yourself up in joint ventures, how to build your value as a joint venture partner, because you don't all want to be a bunch of brand new investors joint venturing, right? You want your brand new person who's maybe good at sales, good at talking to investors. You want your experienced person who can do property management. You might want a renovator, that sort of thing. And it's the whole key behind that of how to set up proper joint ventures. Structure them and everything.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So for people to get that, listeners, you're going to go to hardhatholly.com/60. We are on episode 60. And alternatively, if you're just on your phone, not on a computer, can't get to a keyboard, all you need to do is text hard hat with no spaces in it to the number 38470. That's 38470, and you'll be able to get the download there as well as our past downloads. So Edna, why don't you tell our listeners how they can best find you, get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to find you?
Sure. They can reach out to me right at my website, which is ednakeep.com. And they can join me. I have a joint venture secrets Facebook group as well, where I have a ongoing challenge that kind of runs in there. I have other investors in there. We chat. Ask a great place to ask questions, that sort of thing. And it's just called 6-Figure JV Secrets.
Cool. We'll put all of that in the show notes. And for people who don't know how to spell your name, it's very easy, but it's EDNAKEEP. So ednakeep.com. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your student stories. Very inspirational. I get so excited to hear about people's success stories and their ability to break free from the rat race, since we're talking in Robert Kiyosaki terms. So
yes, exactly.
It's been so nice of you to share all this. So any final words of wisdom or advice you'd like to give to people who are considering jumping into real estate investing?
You know what? There's one thing I consistently tell people over and over again. Your income will never exceed your personal development. You have to invest in yourself to get better. You have to, or you're going to be stuck. So if you're thinking of buying a property and you got some money, maybe you should think about learning how to raise money and spend that money on your education.
Well said. And listeners, you're in the right place by listening to podcasts and getting educated to start. So great job. Well, thank you. And with that, we will be signing off. Thanks, Edna.
Thank you so much, Holly.